Hey, what's up, y'all, and welcome to Teaching Tuesday. Today we are going to talk about how to play on a half diminished chord. So we've talked about in a previous video how to play over minor 2-5-1s, and that's kind of the primary instance that you're going to see a half diminished chord. But we're going to talk about just playing on the half diminished chord in isolation alone. So disclaimer, it doesn't happen that often. The most, the most common example I can see is, I can think of is in inner urge. You have 4 bars of that F sharp, half diminished. Otherwise, you're gonna see it. Maybe you might have like a longer minor 2-5-1. So you might have like one measure of that half diminished chord, the 2 chord, and then one measure of the 5. And in that case, you're not really gonna approach it in the same way that you would, that I talked about in the other video. You are not really gonna wanna use that harmonic minor scale quite yet, at least not really until you get to the 5 chord. So yeah, let's break this down a little bit. So we're gonna be in the key of C half diminished. There's a nice, very meat and potatoes C half diminished chord. So in a minor 2-5-1, you might have C half diminished, F altered to a B flat minor 6 or something like that. Anyways, we're just dealing with the C half diminished chord right now. So there's a couple different scales that people like to think of using over that, over this chord. And so the kind of most common and the most basic would be a C Locrian scale, and that looks like this. And that's the 7th mode of the major scale. And in this case, that would be D flat major. So you can think of that as basically a D flat major scale, but starting from the 7th, so one note below the root. Okay, and then the second scale that we can think of, it's a little hipper, a little more color to it, is going to be the Locrian raised 2, which is derivative of the melodic minor scale. In this case, it would be E flat melodic minor, and that would be the 6th mode. So we're starting from the 6th note. So again, starting from C. And the only note that's different is the 2nd note. So we're going to just, instead of a D flat, have a D natural. And that looks like this. Right? Okay, so let's talk about how to play over this. So you kind of want to approach it in the same way that you're gonna approach a minor chord, and it's like kind of the relative minor in a way. So basically, we're talking about E flat minor, but it's not just an E flat. It's not an E flat minor 7. It's more of an E flat minor 6 sound. And if you notice, all the notes are exactly the same as a C half diminished chord. We have E flat, G flat, C, and if you had just a root position. So if you had this one or this one, yeah, we're gonna have E flat, B flat, C, and G flat, and that's the same notes as this. It's just as the C half diminished. It's just in a different order. It's basically an inversion. Okay, so yeah, we can use kind of our licks from E flat minor, or also A flat 7, right? So if that makes sense to you, these chords are all related in some way. At least a lot of them are. Okay, so in this instance, C half diminished is going to be very similar to E flat minor 6 and A flat 7. All right, so let's start off with a couple very simple licks. So unlike some other chords or some other arpeggios, in this instance, we can actually just arpeggiate the chord and it's going to sound really good. I talked about in some other videos how that's not really true of other chords. Like if you just take a C minor 7, for example, that's not really, it's not that it sounds bad, but it's not really in the jazz vernacular. in a lot of other chords, you're going to want to use more extensions, and there's kind of like a vocabulary that comes with those arpeggios, and it doesn't really lend itself to just going up and down the arpeggio. In this case, that's not true. Like the arpeggio of the C half diminished sounds very good on its own. So that's going to sound like this. A little slower. So again, we have C, E flat, G flat, and B flat. Okay, and then vice versa, we can go back down. And that sounds really nice, just on its own. If I heard that on C half diminished, I would think it sounded good if it was articulated properly with a nice tone and all that. So yeah, a little slower. And yeah, you're gonna want to navigate a nice fingering. I think the ones I'm doing are pretty good, but you can figure that out for yourself. I like a little sweep there. Okay, now the second kind of pair of licks here are going to be derivative of a pentatonic scale. So this is kind of what I talked about in my secret pentatonic video. So if you haven't watched that, I would go check it out. But basically, we were a whole step up in that video. We were talking about F minors, so that would be akin to D half diminished. But anyways, the scale is basically, in this instance, it's going to be C, E flat, F, G flat, and B flat. So we're just kind of like taking out two notes. We're taking out the D flat or D, depending on which scale we're using, and we're taking out the A flat. And that kind of works well because those are not really like good notes in this chord anyways. They're at least they're not integral to the chord. So yeah, the scale kind of sounds like this, or just the 5 notes. Okay, so if we take that, now we're going to take out even another note from that. We're going to take out the E flat. So we have, okay, and now bear with me here. We're going to just start that scale on the F. Okay, so now we're going to go, and then we do it again. And then we put that together, and we have, now that's a little bit of a funky position to play that. So now we're going to move it up here. And that's a great lick to use over that chord. Now we're going to do it on the way down. A little slower. That's a great lick to use over that C half diminished chord. Cool. All right. And then now we're going to get into a couple more complicated licks that are not just like going up and down the scale. This is kind of like a broken up arpeggio. And it sounds like this. Oh, sorry. So we're kind of like skipping some notes. We're kind of like playing the chord, but separating the notes. So that's the same notes as this one here. So we have C, and then G flat, B flat, E flat, and then we're kind of going up the scale to the B flat. And if you notice, once we get to the E flat, that's basically the start of an E flat minor scale. But we're just kind of starting it, like giving a little preface with the C and like more of a C half diminished flavor. Okay, and a couple more. This is a lick that are very similar to a lick that I talked about in the best licks over dominant chord videos, and it's let me see. I think it's going to sound something like this. I think maybe in the video I just did. So basically what we're doing here is we're going up the arpeggio, but instead of just keeping going up, instead of continuing that, we're going to jump up a fifth to F, and then E flat, then B flat, G flat, and then land on the root. Okay, and now here's like a little more of a complex, longer one. Let's see if I can remember it. Okay, so we're gonna do a little like a frill down, or what do we call it? Trill or something, down this, down from F to D. And this is a E flat minor major 7 arpeggio, but going down. So, and then we go back up to C, and then we do an arpeggio, up to C, and then chromatically down to B flat, and then an arpeggio down. So, and then, and I put some thirds at the end here. Or sorry. All right. Cool. I hope you guys found this video helpful. I would also definitely, as I was talking about earlier, check out the, best licks over minor chords and best licks over dominant chords. Because those, if you have the theoretical mind to figure it out and put the puzzle pieces together, those will basically all work over a half diminished chord too, because those chords are very similar. You just kind of have to figure out what keys are kind of like connect with each other. But yeah, I hope you guys found this video helpful. I've had some comments recently that a lot of these are too fast or you can't really pick up on what I'm saying, which I understand there's a range of listeners, so some of these are more advanced than others. I do apologize if you can't follow along, but if you can't and you want it written out, we do have all the PDFs on the Patreon, so that's going to be linked below if you're watching on YouTube, and linked in the bio if you're watching on Instagram. But yeah, that's always a great tool. And otherwise, yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys found this video helpful. Otherwise, I'll see you next Tuesday.